Good afternoon, welcome back to the Mini Performance YouTube channel. Today's job is to replace a bit of hose on the Rotrex system. It's going to put in this bit and take out this section here. Now on the last video for Bumblebee, you would have seen that I had a bit of trouble with the Rotrex. Now all that was filmed in August 2021. As I said on the video before that, it was lost footage, but obviously I found it. So that was August 2021, last weekend of the month I think it was. What I did was sent the Supercharger away to the UK Supercharger repair place. It's a guy called Dave Stewardson, I want to say. Apologies if I got your second name wrong there, Dave. And he had a look at it pretty straight away as it came. The same day it arrived, he had it stripped and sent me the photographs of the damage, which I'll attach here. And as you can see, it was pretty bad. I mean, in the previous video you could see the damage to the impeller blades, but the bearings had taken a beating, and from what he could ascertain, it had run without oil. Now, the thing with the Rotrex is it has its own oil system and it controls its own oil by acting as the pump. Now, I'll show you the layout in this one and explain the problems that I had. So you got your Supercharger sitting at the front or at the back, depending on where it was. Obviously, it's to the back now, it was at the front before. And then there's an oil cooler sitting there, and then somewhere under there's a filter, and then in the back of there that you can hardly see, there's a canister. Now the canister always has to be on these smaller Rotrexes, it has to be below the center line of your Supercharger, which is why you're very restricted as to where you can put it on a classic Mini, especially if you have your Supercharger down low, like where your alternator would be in here. And what I think had happened was when I moved it to the back, we did test it and we pressure bled it, and we definitely had fluid going through it, but for some reason, perhaps there was a leak on some of these pipes and it was letting air in, it had stopped pumping. And because these pipes are solid black, you can't see the fluid moving through the system, so you just have to assume it's working the whole time. Now, one of the checks you do when you first get your Supercharger up and running on the Rotrex is you check the fluid level with the Supercharger running. But the only problem I have with that is I have to take all this end of the engine away to be able to see the canister, which is down the back of there underneath the air filter. So I had the thought of perhaps I can use some sort of clear pipe, then I can actually physically see the fluid moving each time I run the car, and basically to put my mind at rest, because obviously all these different noises that I'm hearing, now I'm imagining in my head that every time I run it, the Rotrex is running without oil going through it, even though I think it is running with fluid going through it, but I can't prove it. So the thinking is, put this bit of clear pipe in, which is like reinforced fuel pipe, and it's supposed to be good for all sorts of nasty chemicals and stuff, so it should be alright for this. So the idea was to put it in between the Supercharger outlet here and the rad, the oil cooler, and then each time it runs I'll be able to see the fluid going through the system and put my mind at rest. So today's plan is to change that bit of pipe out, run it to make sure I can see fluid going through the system, and then go for some test drives and do some mapping. Okay, so the new pipe is on. The only issue I had was getting it off because it was quite tight onto these connections. The old pipe, although it's the same internal diameter, the outside is quite a lot thicker, so it was quite hard to manoeuvre. You know, it was obviously tight in there. I couldn't use the same clips, so I've had to just use the supplied stainless hose clamps. So the next job will be to fire the car up and see if this fills with blue fluid. One point to note is that when I took that old pipe off, there was no fluid in it. But then my theory is that there shouldn't be anywhere, because it'll gravity feed back down through there and back into the reservoir. But I'm also thinking that there should have been some in the oil cooler, because the pipe on the outlet from the oil cooler is a little bit higher, so therefore it should have run back in and leveled itself out. I'm not sure. Let's find out what happens next when I fire the engine up. Well, that was good news. Yeah, I could see the blue fluid flowing when I was sitting in the seat there, so that's good. I just want to check for any leaks in that next.